Thank you everyone again for joining. I'm Nandita Sugandhi. I work currently as productivity manager for Mondelez International. I am a graduate of Masters of Management from SGM from IIT Bombay, and currently I'm pursuing a second management degree in project management from IIM Mumbai. So yeah, that's my journey so far. What I'm doing right now is taking a series of lectures or sessions with the entire community here, where I will be able to or I'll try to help and impart whatever I have learned so far in my journey, and share my experiences with the team here, with everyone in here, so that they can benefit from it. What we will do is we will just go through a so today's topic is landing the job. What we are trying to do here today in the session is kind of try to impart tips which will enable you to have better prospects if you want a certain job or a certain role, and how to kind of get it and how to prepare for it. And after that we will go for a Q&A session. If that sounds well, then I'll be sharing my screen. So today's topic is landing the job. It's a simple 7-step guide. There are a lot of smaller tips in there which you will find useful, but it's a simple 7-step guide in totality. Starting off with first step, what to do. First thing is you have to prepare yourself mentally. You have to be there when you are applying for a job. You have to have a very clear thought or mindset, because that's what the employer is also looking for. Very clear mindset of why do you want to do this job, because that will translates into action on the job. You need to have a winning attitude. While you are in an interview, a positive attitude that you are going to land this job. Although it sounds like it's gyan, but it does help. If you are positive about something, you will be able to land it. And your confidence during any interview comes from your preparation of your basics. So do your background study on what the company or the organization is about, even if it is a very small organization. Understand that what is their business and why their business is the way it is. uh, Understand the profile, what are the requirements of the field, what are the basics of the field. So for example, if it is a sales job, it's a marketing job, then try to understand what are the basics of sales and marketing, what are the basic KPIs. How do you deal with customers, why is the customer important. Those landing those basics are very very important, because that will bring in the confidence which will help you ace the interview. And then you will have to have a background study on the profile and future career opportunities as well, because you're getting into it today, but if you don't have a visibility of what is going to happen to your future, you're never going to get that surety from inside. So very important to do these background study before going for any job opportunity, so that you can be confident about it. And it is true or applicable, I think, in any scenario, whether it be from being a corporate employee to being even a civil servant or even a nurse for that matter. You have to understand why are you doing whatever you're doing, and whether you're okay with it. You need to want it to be able to 100% taste it. That's very very important. Second step is, whenever you're applying for a job, before you walk in for an interview, before anything else, the first thing that goes in front of the employer is your CV or your resume. So there are some thumb rules which I am trying to help you with, and this PPT will be circulated. So whenever you are preparing your resume, you can refer back to it. Usually, in a not try to use a font size greater than 10 or 12. Too large a font size just looks filled in, but it looks a little childlike. Not look very professional. Keep it as concise and as professional as possible. It is your CV, it is not biodata, which means that you will have to leave your personal details out of it. Your parents, your blood group, all of those things need not come in, because I've seen people make that mistake, and that's why it's a very basic or fundamental thing, but just calling it out. The only personal information that usually comes in a very formal CV is your hobbies, and those hobbies are a great way to indicate what kind of person you are. So say the kind of hobbies you have reflect the kind of person you are. That is a good personal information to put on your CV. But apart from it, keep it strictly professional as much as you can. The sections could be your professional work experience, your academics, your achievements, your anything extracurricular, co-curricular activities that you have done in the past or you're doing currently. All of those should go in the CV. And whenever you're putting them, just ensure that your strength have to be highlighted first. Usually CVs are made in reverse chronological order, which means that most recent thing comes most on the top, but also in the order of importance. So if you feel like your education is better than your recent work experience and you do not want to highlight it, or if you have a gap in your CV, put your educational background section on the very top. But if you feel like you have had a recent relevant work experience which you want to highlight, put your work experience section on the top, and education section can come after that. So a CV, there is no right or wrong way of making it. There are just some good practices that you might need to go through in order to be able to or implement in order to be able to have a good CV with you. Have your contact details on CV. That's very, very important. Having or not having a photograph is a complete personal decision. It is okay either ways. I mean, there are some people who come with this question, and that's why just clarifying it. Avoid white spaces in the CV, because too much white spaces makes the CV look very empty, as if you don't have much to say, right? Try to stick to this thumb rule that you will have one line and there will be one item which will be there in that line. For example, if you have an academic achievement, then that one line can highlight your academic achievement and nothing else. Try to frame it nicely, word it nicely, and just highlight your skill you as much as you can. So if there are any keywords in your CV, just highlight it there, that these are my skill set, this is my achievement, this is my achievement. Achievement can include anything and everything, from savings that you have done to your organization, to number of people you have handled in your organization, to any examination that you might have topped. Anything which indicates that you have a certain skill set or an achievement can be emboldened. Just don't overdo it. Error proof everything. That's very, very important. I have seen CVs where people have mistaken their own spelling of their own name. So it's very important before printing your CV. Finally, please proofread. And very important, if you have someone with you who can lend a second set of eye to just look at your CV and see if important or points which you want to highlight are coming through or not, have a second set of eyes, look at them. Someone else's opinion might improve your CV. So just do that. You can have different CV for different profiles or different job roles that you are applying for. So things are flexible. Mold them as you need to, as you can. For different profiles, you can have different CVs. Keep updating it annually. If once you have gotten a job, it's not as if for 3 4 years you don't change your job, so you don't change your CV and just sit on it. No, every 6 months try to gain a new skill or some achievement, a one liner that you can add in your CV. Once a year at least, try to update your CV. It should be up to date for any future eventuality that might come. So if the job market is bad, or the organization does not do well, or whatever happens, you should have your CV handy. And it helps you understand also. It's kind of a flashback on how your year was, and how you performed and what do you need to do next year. It's like personal goal setting that you do. Now there are certain words which you can frame better. I will just give you few examples, but I think I will just help you understand the context. For example, there are words like helped. I helped doing so and so. It shows that you're in a helper position. You did not take charge of it. Or you're a team player. It's not bad to write a team player, but multiple mention shows that you may not be able to take an independent project. Or a people person, it's not a strong enough word. There are better ways to frame it. Not that they should not be used altogether, but they can be certainly framed better. For example, instead of using helped, you can say I have conducted, or I have executed so and so event, or so and so activity. Or instead of team player or people person, you can write I managed a team of xyz number, or I liaised with a team of size abc. It just sounds better, and it shows that you were actively involved in something. So wording, how you word something, is very very important. So be very careful, give a lot of time in preparing your cv, and have a solid document with you, because that is your personality to the interviewer before they even interact with you, and first impressions really matter. uh, Then comes the softer aspects, the aspects of communication. Once you are done with your CV and your CV has been shortlisted, and then there is a face to face interaction, or maybe there is an on call interaction, and their communication becomes the medium through which you can influence the employer to kind of offer a job to you. So when you're doing that, do not circumvent, do not go around in circles. Be as crisp as you can in the words that you're using. Try to be concise. It is okay to take time to think. So say for example, if during an interviewer has asked you a question, and it's a quite a complex. So say for example, they have given you a scenario, and they are asking you the best course of action. It's okay to say, hey, I need a couple of minutes to organize my thoughts. Can you give me 2 minutes? Don't do it too frequently, but 2 to 3 times in a half an hour interview is okay to do. If the questions are very complex, take your time to think. Use pen and paper if you have to. Organize your thoughts, word your thoughts, and then you speak it out. It is okay to do it that way. The interview themselves will be impressed that you have taken your time and you have come to them with a crisp answer. Be as accurate and as honest as you can. If there is a topic that you do not know, it is okay to say, "Hey, I do not know this, but I can check and get back to you," or I will go and check it out." Okay, and even if you're taking a guess, just tell them that I'm not sure whether this is right, but this is my guess, XYZ, and whatever your guess is. So even if you're wrong, at least the interviewer will know that you were not aware of it and you honestly admitted that. Admitting something that you don't know shows your humbleness. And if you're honest, the interviewer likes you as well as their employer, because that's one quality that anyone would like to have in their employee. uh, don't be nervous. It's very important. It's a very important message that I want to land, that the interviewer is also betting for your success. Why is the interviewer sitting in the interview, right? They want someone to get employed. They want a good employee, and they want everyone to be at their best, and they want to select the best out of their best performances. So they also want you to succeed, that you give your very best possible in the interview, and if you're good enough, they'll take you. And so the interviewer will generally be in a helpful mood. So for example, if there is a question that you have not understood, feel free to just ask again. Sorry, I did not understand this. Can you please repeat it? It's okay. They'll explain to you. The interviewer will be kind enough. Do not be nervous about it. Be daring. Whenever you need to get more information, if you have been given a scenario, you have to do an analysis, and you feel like the data is not sufficient and you need more information to be able to give an answer, be daring. Ask them, I need more information. Can you tell me uh, whatever it might be, I need more data set. So it's okay. Communication is very very important. The more you ask back and the more you open the channels of communication, they understand that you are a good communicator, and in real life situations you will be able to effectively communicate and work well, because those who communicate well actually have higher success rates. To communication which embodies the quality that the profile requires. For example, if you are, I hope so it happens, but if you are running for a CEO position, say for example, you have to have leadership skills, you have to be a little assertive, you have to be decisive. So those kind of qualities should come through the words and the tonality of your voice during your communication. But if you are going to be a nurse, or if you are going to be some sort of medical help, then you need to be compassionate, you need to be empathetic, and so that softness should come in your communication. That's very, very important. Whenever you're in an interview, since it's a formal conversation, do not try to jump between languages, because that makes the conversation casual. If you are comfortable with Hindi, you speak in Hindi. If you are speaking in English, you completely speak in English. A little bit of mix is okay, but do not try to make a complete mix up, or rather, I would say, khichdi out of it. Do not use casual language, because it denotes insincerity, and that would not fare well with the prospects of being an employee. uh, in case if you have multiple interviewers, sometimes it so happens that you have a panel of 3 people or 4 5 people, and they will ask you multiple questions just to confuse you. Answer one by one, try to record in your mind, this was question number 1 2 3 4, and just say, wait here, I will be answering all the questions one by one. Question number one was this. Repeat the question and ask them whether you have understood it rightly, and then answer the question. Then you go to the question number two. In case if you have forgotten something, an aspect of the question that the interviewer has asked, then it is okay for them to like you have to you can ask them to repeat. It's just perfectly fine. It's okay for you to ask them to repeat the question. There's nothing wrong with it. So this covers the softer aspects of communication, on how your communication should be during an interview. Exact details of what are asked in an interview and how to deal with it, I'll come in a later section. Now we will move on to the step number 4, which is your body language. Whenever you are going to an interview, or even going for an exam or a group exercise, you will have to walk in confidently. There are some basic courtesy and manners. When you walk in, you just ask them, may I have a seat? When they tell you, yes, you can have a seat, then only you sit, right? You sit straight. If you lean forward, then it shows that you are interested in what they are saying. So a little lean forward, not too much. You have to be calm and composed. Moving legs too much shows restlessness. You should not put your elbows on the table unless you are using your hands to write. So try to keep your hands in lap when you're not writing or you're not gesturing. Do not slouch during an interview, because it shows disinterest. And smile as often, because smiling brings positivity. And if you smile often, then the interviewer also gets relaxed that the potential employee is confident, calm, composed, and they get more confidence in you. uh, Leaning in expresses interest. Use it wisely. Lean in at the right moment. Sit straight otherwise. It's a very powerful thing to use your body to express with non-verbal cues. Use hand gestures to land message wherever it is impactful. It should be assertive. It should not be aggressive. You should not be moving your hands around too much. A little bit, for the audience to be able to, or the interviewers to be able to understand the message that you're trying to land. And most importantly, there is an Indian bob which is world famous, which is this. Avoid doing that, because it is neither yes, neither no. Use a bit of that body language. You can nod your head, but don't do that. So these are like my inputs on how your body language should be during an interview. So now you have prepared for your interview, you have your CV ready, you have your communication skills, you have your body language set. But how do you look is very, very important. Physical appearance. A lot of people have questions as to what to dress in, how to look when we are going for an interview or in a formal setting. Very important, no matter what your mood is, because us as bipolars, we have a lot of ups and downs. Ensure that you always freshen up before interview. Wash your face, get ready properly. wear formal clothing. Now, what I have done is I have coded the dress code for girls and boys that we could use during the interviews. Girls, if they are going for an Indian wear, they can wear a salwar kameez with dupatta. Do not wear it without dupatta, or saris. It should be in soft shades or soft prints. Do not wear it very loud. It should be modest. In If you're wearing western formals, then you can wear a shirt with skirts or trouser, but ensure that you're always tucking in your shirt. The shirt should not be out of skirt or trousers. Footwear preferred is a closed toe footwear. Your toenail is preferably not shown. You should either wear a soft or a nude color or no nail paint. And if you are not wearing a nail paint, then your nails should be either trimmed or they should be groomed. You should not be wearing danglers like I'm wearing today. It's not formal. Nothing in terms of jewelry that dangles, attracts attention, and no loud makeup. That is what formal dressing for girls look like, or women look like. Now, for guys, usually it is preferred for Western formals. With them, you should pair shoes, but there should never be sports shoes or jeans in their formals. Their nails should be trimmed and preferably tucked in shirt with matching belt with the shoes. So that is the kind of formal clothing that boys can wear. Is it important or necessary to wear a blazer? No. In extremely formal scenario, you can choose to wear blazer. Otherwise, it is not mandatory. Shirts work just as fine. Now, apart from it, physically, what should you do when you are appearing for an interview or a process for recruitment? Carry your documents in a good file in the order in which they appear in CV. A lot of times, you take it with you in the interview. A lot of times, your CV copies are already there with the interviewer. They would have read it before you enter the interview room, and they would start asking you question, but meanwhile they will ask you for the original copies of your certificate, so that they can actually see what you have done and what kind of event it was. Carry a good working pen and some blank A4 sheets, just in case they give you a kind of question which will require some rough work or exercise. You should be ready with you. That's kind of impressive if an interviewer asks a question and you're ready with your pen and paper and you get your answer and you organize your thoughts and give them the correct answer. And importantly, it's you should look sharp. Your appearance should be sharp and clean, so your clothes should be properly ironed. Avoid them getting wrinkled before the interview. So that is on the physical appearance, because first impressions matter. They influence decision to a large extent. Therefore, physical appearance is also very important whenever you are going for a recruitment process. Now, what to do for good activities? So next couple of steps, I have a lot of tips or good practices to go about whenever you are going for an interview or process. Whenever you have a group activity, and when I'm talking about group activity, either you would have received a case or you would have received a topic. You have to prepare on it. You have to read the case. There might be a question, and you have to have a group discussion and reach a consensus and present that consensus within 10 or 15 minutes. Usually, these kind of group activities happen. The prompt can be anything. It can be video, it can be a photograph, it can be audio, it can be a word, or it can be a case study. But what are good practices for such group activities? Because a lot of time people fail in group discussions because your selection ratio is generally 1 is to 10 or 2 is to 10, right? So whenever you're it's an elimination process. Whenever there are group activities, they are just elimination process. They will remove the ones which don't stand out or which were not positive, who were not positive, and they will just select one or two candidates. So whenever you are in such activity, allow people to speak as well. It's not only important that you speak, but also you allow others to have a voice, because they're testing how will you behave in a real life working scenario. Summarize your thoughts well before you speak. You have received a prompt, you would have received 10 to 15 minutes to even think about it. So think on it and then you start speaking. The kind of interjection clauses you use to cut someone else are very important. You cannot just increase your voice and just shout at the top of your lungs and just present your thoughts. No one will listen to you, and you do not leave a good impression in that case. What you can do is let someone finish their perspective or whatever they are trying to put forward, and then say, I agree and I would like to add on top of this, or I disagree with you and I offer this counter argument to you. So the kind of words you use to make make a way inside the conversation, that is very very important. Be mindful of time. A lot of time people start discussing something and they forget what the time is, and they forget that they have to close the discussion and they have to take a decision and get out of it, and the discussion never reaches conclusion. It's very important that we steer the discussion in the right direction. Even that is seen as a positive, that you try to steer the conversation towards closure, which means that you are one of the decision makers, which employers really really like. Whenever you are doing opening, so there will be a first person who speaks after sharing the topic. If you are the first person to speak, always first introduce yourself anyways whenever you're speaking for the first time. Then summarize the topic for the group. Tell that so and so topic has been given to us. If it's a case study, summarize the important facts, what you have been asked to do, and then keep your views, what are your thoughts on it, and then allow someone else to come in. This is the way to open a group discussion. Now, whenever you're doing a discussion, the facilitator is to observe. They are audience, but they don't exist for you. It's a group discussion. You are simulating a scenario. So the people who are doing discussion should be talking to each other. The facilitator should not exist for you unless they are giving some specific instructions in the course of discussion if the discussion is going wrong. So the facilitator don't exist till the time you're done with your decision. When you're doing the discussion, everyone will introduce themselves because that's a good practice. You try to remember the names of your peers, and whenever you're doing the discussion and you're interjecting, I agree with your perspective, and you try to take their name. It builds rapport with your peers, they trust you more, and it is more likely that your thoughts or your perspective will be considered while making the final decision. And this goes as a big plus during group discussions. Do not get personal in such discussions. A lot of time people take the discussion, if someone interjects and rejects their thought process, they take it personally and get very very aggressive. No need to get personal about it. Sometimes you have to let things go. That works as a plus. uh, be strong in your argument, be assertive in your argument, but do not be aggressive in your argument. Now, once the discussion has happened, you're steering the discussion in the right direction. Just like opening, closure is equally important. In case if you have not been able to make a remark so far in the discussion and it's time to close, you if you take the spot for closure, very important, you summarize the entire discussion, and that's why during the discussion they usually give you an A4 sheet. You write down what each and everyone is saying, the pros and the cons or whatever it is, and then conclude it with the decision of the group. So a good closure or conclusion is also very important. If you have not been able to make an entry in the discussion at all, or if you don't know anything about the topic, even doing closure can help you get selected for the interview, from the group discussion round to the interview. So this is a small tip. Remember that it's an elimination process. There are sometimes groups where there is a lot of discussion, very heated argument, and the entire group gets rejected. Do not let it go to that stage. Leave a positive mark. At least you should get selected. You don't care what happens to the rest of the group. So these are some good manners or good practices for group activities that is being done. And then comes the final and then there comes the solo activity and extempore. So either or can happen. Either there will be a group activity or there will be a solo activity. Be honest with your knowledge on topic. So what is an extempore? First, let me define it for those who may not be aware of it. Usually a topic is being given to the candidate. They are being given 10 to 15 minutes to think, and then they say you have to speak on this topic for 1 to 2 minutes. It's a small uh, you would say extempore, but it's very difficult because when you're actually speaking, you realize that 2 minutes is a very, very long time, and you have to be very concise in the way you're speaking and you're thinking as well. So, firstly, be honest with your knowledge on the topic. If you don't know a lot about the topic, be honest. Tell your interviewer and get the topic changed, that I'm not aware about it. I will not be able to speak 1 to 2 minutes, because if you brave it and you get into speaking and then within 30 seconds you fall flat, then whatever comes out of your mouth will not make sense, and that's not a good situation to be in. So ask for a change if needed, but once is okay, not 2 or 3 times. Then try to otherwise make do with what you have and be honest about it. Stick to one language, as again I have said. There are certain frameworks like SWOT and PESTEL to analyze topic. SWOT is strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats, and PESTEL is physical, environmental. Then you have your technical, you have your economical, and legal. So all of these kind of analysis are being done, and these are a good way to kind of analyze your thoughts and structure them. And it could be applied to any topic. It could be applied to an organization, it could be applied to a topic, it could be applied to a situation. Even if there is a topic like the war that's happening in the world right now, you can apply these concepts there as well. We can have a SWOT pestle workshop later on if you would want, but just mentioning that there are frameworks available to organize your thoughts. So if you're going for an interview, you can actually Google them out and just practice them a bit. Pace yourself, use the full duration of the extempore that you have been given. If you've been asked to speak for 2 minutes, try to at least speak for 1 minute 45 seconds. Have an opinion about something. So even if you know a lot about topic, do not be limited to the facts and figures about it. Just try to also speak about what do you think about it, what is your perspective. Color it with your perspective so that the interviewer understands that you have an opinion of your own, and you should have justification of your opinion as well. So be ready for cross questioning, that way they understand whether you have developed logical skills or not. So solo activity is also extremely important. And finally, if you are done with your solo or group activity, then you will have your interview. So, what are some tips for interview? Most importantly, be thoroughly ready with your CV. Likely, it can happen that the interviewers would have already seen or read your CV before they started interviewing you, and they will see a single word and they can ask any and every question from your CV. So just be very thorough with your CV. Whatever you have put there, ensure that you know it, and whatever subjects which are there in your CV, be an expert at least in one subject matter. A lot of time interviewers ask, okay, so what is your strength, what do you like the most, and you tell I like so and so subject. You say you like electrical engineering, and they ask you a question about motors, what are different types of motors, and you fall flat, then it does not reflect well. So be an expert at least one subject matter, so that in case if they give you a choice and ask you a question about it, you have answers to give. And then there are some standard questions which you have to prepare well before you go, because there are some questions which are standard. You can prepare for them in anticipation, you can write them down, you can practice in front of mirror. It is perfectly fine to do that. You are not faking it, you are just preparing for it. There are questions like, why should we hire you? Your answers should include what is the value that you will bring to your organization. You should answer your skill sets. Why are you unique? These would these would contribute to the answer. Why do you select our organization? So you have already done, as we have seen in the first step, you would have already done the preparation on the background or history of the organization, their vision, their mission, and no matter how big or small the organization is, why do you want to be associated with them is very, very important. You should have two versions of introduction to yourself, one about 4 to 5 minutes long and one about 1 to 2 minutes long, in detail and not in detail. The reason for having two versions is sometimes you will step in, the interviewer will ask a question, tell me something about yourself. and you will say a small brief introduction that I'm doing so and so, I have this experience. You will basically just give a very brief description of your CV. You will say I have so and so family and they live with me or they don't live with me, these are my hobbies, and they will ask, and can you tell me more about yourself? And that's where people get stuck. So have more details about yourself, have multiple version of this self introduction ready. The most that a person should be able to know about is themselves, and this is where you should not stumble. So have this ready. One important thing that might come for us is we might have gaps in our CV, especially when our health deteriorates and we might want to take a break. It's firstly, it might be make people nervous, but it's perfectly fine to have gaps in your CV as long as you can explain them. It is perfectly reasonable to say that I have gap in CV because of personal health concerns. You may say that you do not want to declare, but you are all fine now, or because of health concerns in family, or you were on a journey of self discovery or spiritualism, or you were just taking time to recuperate yourself. Whatever the reason might be, word it well and say it is justified, and now I'm all energized and back ready to get back in the workforce. That zest should come when you're answering for your gaps in CV instead of nervousness, and I'm sure that it will be an easy breezy scenario. You will be able to sail through it. Very important to have prepared your strength and your weaknesses. Do not claim your strength to be your weakness. Like, weakness is not being able to focus at something for a very long time. Weakness is not being too dedicated that I work myself out completely. No, that is a strength. That you're a workaholic, it's not a weakness. So just have your strength and weaknesses ready, and also have ready that whatever is your weakness, what do you do to cope up with it, to overcome it. And even if you're not done with it, even if you're not over it yet, what are your plans to get over your weakness, or how does it affect you? And then career vision. It is good to know where your career will take you. For example, if it is sales, you might want to become head of sales in an organization. But it is also okay to not know endgame. And I have recently had a few interviews, and I have told to the VP of my organization that I don't know what do I want to become in the end. I just know that I want to have a very diverse work experience for now. So you will ask me what my next role is going to be. I know that, but if you will ask me what am I going to be 10 years down the line, I do not know, and it was perfectly fine. It is okay to not know. Let life happen to you. That's fine. Do not be nervous about it. You do not need to know answer to every question. Uh, then use pen and paper whenever you need to. It is okay to use pen and paper, and that's why carry your own pen and paper. Whenever you are in an interview, do not overcome it. Be realistic, and it might become a problem with us later on if we overcome it. We say we can do this, but then we will not be able to deliver on it. It is a problem with us because there are certain mood stages where we feel like we can conquer the world, and when the mood goes down and everything comes crashing down. So try to be mindfully as realistic as you can while you're committing during your interview. uh, because there is a lot of time a question comes, how do you work in a high pressure, high paced environment? Mindfully answer that question. Do not jump on it. It is okay, and in fact very important, to ask questions at the end of an interview. Because just like the interviewer is assessing you or your capabilities, you should also be assessing their organization and their culture. So if you have queries about things like, what are the kind of things you would expect, what are the kind of growth path that your employees have, do you allow internal transfers between departments, how mobile do you need your employee to be within geographies? If you have any questions like that, ask them during the interview. The employer understands that you are also interested, and this opens up a positive channel of conversation and reflects positively. And while you're switching job, One question which might frequently come is, why are you leaving the previous organization? Whatever reasons you give, please do not badmouth the current organization or your current or your previous manager. It's very important because it shows the kind of person you are. And if you badmouth your previous employers, the new employer might think that you might do it with them as well, and it will not have a good effect on the outcome of your interview. So please be very mindful of this. No matter how bad an experience and genuine your complaints might have been about your previous organization, do not shy away in negotiating salary. If you are moving, you're joining, or even if you're moving to a new organization, be as aggressive as you can, because your efforts in that negotiation will be equivalent to 1 or 2 years if equivalent of hike, right? So it's just that much more income. And imagine if you are just trying to get that much more with your investments, it's just 7 to 8%, 8% of returns on FDs that you get, right? So try to get the maximum out of your salary negotiation as you can. And before you go to an interview, try to do your background homework, Glassdoor, Fishbowl, wherever it is possible. Just have a market benchmark of what kind of salaries are being given for this role in this size of organization. And for the organization in particular that you have applied for, uh, what kind of things are people saying or ex-employees saying? Is the culture good or bad? This background homework will save you a lot of pain in future. Ensure that there is a markup. If you are switching jobs, you have a salary increase. Policies and perks are equally important. A lot of times do not talk about policies and perks that they get during an interview, or even during the process, the entire process. Please ask about how many days you will have to work in a week. What are the working hours? Are they fixed or flexible? Whether you have a flexibility of work from home or not. For us, flexibility is very, very important. What are Whether you have insurance coverage or not. What is the leave policy? Because we may need sick days off as well. Do they have good sick days off? Is it paid or unpaid? What is the relocation policy? These are some important questions to ask during or after an interview as a follow up. And be confident, but do it with humbleness. Do not be overconfident. And if you do this, you will be able to ace the interview, and you will be able to land the job certainly. So these are some ज्ञान की बातें from my end, and I hope it helps you.